The alarm screamed at 5:30 in the morning. Julia Winters slacked the button with more force than necessary, her hand knocking over an empty coffee mug in the process. It clattered against the nightstand, rolled, and fell to the carpet with a muffled thud. She lay there for 3 precious seconds, staring at the water-stained ceiling of her bedroom before forcing herself upright. Her body protested. Every muscle ached from yesterday's double shift. The apartment was cold. The heating had been acting up again, but calling the landlord meant listening to another lecture about late rent. Julia pulled on yesterday's jeans from the floor and a sweater that had seen better years. Her reflection in the bathroom mirror showed dark circles under her green eyes, auburn hair tangled from restless sleep. She splashed water on her face. The pipes groaned. Owen's room was smaller than hers, barely fitting his twin bed and a plastic dresser covered in dinosaur stickers. He slept curled on his side, clutching a stuffed brachiosaurus, worn bald in patches. Julia's chest tightened with the familiar mixture of love and guilt that defined her motherhood. "Sweetheart," she whispered, sitting on the edge of his bed. "Time to wake up." Owen stirred, his green eyes blinking open, gap-toothed smile appearing instantly despite the early hour. "Morning, Mama. Morning, baby. We need to hustle today." They moved through their routine with practiced efficiency. Julia made oatmeal while Owen dressed himself, emerging with his shirt on backward and mismatched socks. She fixed the shirt, left the socks. Pick your battles. The oatmeal was cheap, bland, filling. Owen ate without complaint, telling her about the drawing he wanted to finish at kindergarten. A T-Rex fighting a Triceratops. "Mr. Peterson says my dinosaurs are really good," Owen said, milk from his cereal dotting his upper lip. "He put one on the wall." "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Julia's phone buzzed, text from her coworker at the coffee shop asking her to come in 30 minutes early. Someone called in sick. She closed her eyes briefly. "Mama? You okay?" "I'm fine, baby. Just tired." They left the apartment at 6:40. The November air bit through Julia's thin coat as they walked 3 blocks to Owen's kindergarten's early drop-off program. His shoes, held together with superglue along one seam, squeaked against the damp pavement. She needed to buy him new ones. She needed to buy him so many things. The kindergarten aide, Mrs. Patterson, greeted them at the door with practiced cheerfulness. Owen hugged Julia's legs before running inside, his backpack nearly as big as his small frame. Julia made it to the coffee shop by 7:15. The morning rush was relentless. Entitled businesspeople barking complicated orders. Tourists confused by the menu. The espresso machine leaking again. Julia's feet screamed in her sneakers. Her manager, a perpetually irritated man named Griffin, kept snapping at her to move faster. She smiled. She apologized. She made lattes and cappuccinos and Americanos until the names blurred together. Lunch break was 15 minutes. She ate a day-old muffin from the discount basket and checked her phone. 3 missed calls from a number she didn't recognize. No voicemail. Probably a debt collector. The afternoon shift at the bookstore started at 3. Julia picked up Owen at 2:30, walked him to her neighbor's apartment. Mrs. Chen was 72 and watched Owen for $20 an evening, which was all Julia could afford. The old woman was kind, but her hearing was going, and Julia worried constantly. "Be good," Julia told Owen, kissing his forehead. "I'll be home by 9. "I know, Mama." The bookstore was quieter than the coffee shop. Julia shelved returns, helped customers find titles, operated the register. Her manager here, Patricia, was better than Griffin. Sometimes she let Julia take home damaged books for Owen. By 8:30, Julia's vision was getting blurry. She'd been on her feet for nearly 14 hours. Her phone rang at 8:45. Unknown number again. She almost didn't answer. "Hello? Julia? Julia Winters?" The voice was elegant, warm, familiar in a way that made Julia's breath catch. "Yes, who is this?" "It's Christine Harlow, dear. I don't know if you remember me." Julia stopped walking between the aisles. "Mrs. Harlow? Of course I remember you." Christine Harlow. Julia had worked as her personal assistant for 2 years before Owen was born. The pregnancy had been complicated, high risk, and Julia had left the position in her 7th month. Christine had been nothing but kind, giving her a generous severance and telling her the door was always open. That was 6 years ago. "I'm so glad I tracked you down," Christine said. "Your number changed." "Yes, I moved apartments." "Mrs. Harlow, is everything all right?" "Please, call me Christine. And yes, everything's fine. Actually, I'm calling with an invitation. I'm hosting my annual charity gala this Saturday evening. I'd love for you to attend. Julia nearly dropped the book she was holding. I don't think that's appropriate. I'm not in that world anymore. Nonsense. You were one of the brightest, most compassionate people I ever employed. This year's gala benefits single-parent initiatives. Your perspective would be valuable. Christine, I appreciate the thought, but I can't. I don't have anything to wear to an event like that, and I'd need a babysitter, and I'll send a dress, consider it a gift, and I'll arrange childcare. There's a wonderful service I use, fully vetted, bonded. Please, Julia, it would mean so much to me. Julia leaned against the bookshelf. Her practical side screamed this was ridiculous, but something else stirred, something she'd buried under exhaustion and responsibility. The memory of feeling like more than just a tired mother, an overworked employee. I don't know. One evening. Good food, good cause, and you might even enjoy yourself. When's the last time you did something just for you? Julia couldn't remember. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'll come. Christine's delighted laugh came through the phone. Wonderful, I'll have everything sent over. The gala is Saturday at 7. The Richmond Hotel Ballroom. I'll text you all the details. They said goodbye. Julia stared at her phone. Patricia appeared at the end of the aisle. Everything all right? I think I just agreed to go to a charity gala. Patricia raised her eyebrows. Look at you, Cinderella. Julia laughed, but it sounded uncertain. She returned to shelving books. Her mind spinning. This was insane. She didn't belong at events like that anymore. She'd probably spill something on the dress or say the wrong thing to the wrong person. But Owen would be safely watched, and there would be food, real food, the kind she couldn't afford. One evening, she could manage. One evening. The dress arrived Friday afternoon. Julia opened the box with shaking hands. It was emerald green, simple but elegant. The fabric softer than anything she'd touched in years. It fit perfectly. Christine must have remembered her measurements. Saturday arrived too quickly. The babysitter, a professional woman named Margaret with impeccable references, arrived at 6:30. Owen liked her immediately, already showing her his dinosaur collection before Julia could finish giving instructions. We'll be just fine, Margaret assured her. You look beautiful. Go enjoy yourself. Julia took a taxi, an extravagance that made her wince. The Richmond Hotel loomed ahead, all glass and marble and old money. People in designer clothes stepped out of luxury cars. Julia's hands were sweating. She walked through the entrance, her discount store heels clicking on marble floors. Ballroom was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, women dripping in jewelry that cost more than Julia made in a year. She didn't belong here. Christine found her within minutes, elegant in silver silk, pulling Julia into a warm embrace. You came, and you look absolutely lovely. Christine, I feel completely out of place. You're exactly where you should be. Come, let me introduce you to some people. The next hour passed in a blur of names and faces. Julia smiled until her cheeks hurt, made small talk, accepted champagne she barely sipped. Everyone was polite. Most were performatively kind, the sort who donated to charity for tax benefits and social standing. But the cause was real. Single parents, programs for childcare, education assistance, job training. Julia relaxed slightly. She was standing near the dessert table, grateful for a moment alone, when she heard it. Crying, quiet, muffled. The sound a child makes when trying very hard not to be heard. Julia set down her champagne, looked around, saw nothing. The crying continued. She knelt, lifted the white tablecloth. A little boy was curled under the dessert table. Black hair, gray eyes swimming with tears, expensive suit rumpled. He couldn't have been more than 5. Hey there, Julia said softly. Are you okay, sweetheart? The boy stared at her, his small chest hitched with suppressed sobs. Julia glanced around. No one was paying attention. She crawled under the table. The space under the table was dim, cramped, and smelled like chocolate ganache. Julia tucked her dress around her legs and sat cross-legged beside the boy. It's pretty loud out there, isn't it? she said quietly. The boy nodded. His gray eyes were red-rimmed, tears still clinging to his dark lashes. He looked so small in his expensive suit. The jacket wrinkled where he'd been hugging his knees. I'm Julia. What's your name? The boy hesitated. Leo. That's a strong name, like a lion. The smallest smile flickered across his face before disappearing. His hands twisted together in his lap, knuckles pale. Do you want to tell me why you're hiding? Leo's bottom lip trembled. Too many people. They're all so loud, and the music hurts my ears. Julia understood immediately. Owen was the same way sometimes, overwhelmed by noise and crowds. She'd learned to recognize the signs. That makes sense. It's a lot, isn't it? All those voices and the music and people wearing too much perfume. Leo's eyes widened slightly. Yes, exactly like that. Are you here with your parents? Something shuddered in the boy's expression. My dad, he had to bring me because Rosa got sick. Is Rosa your babysitter? My nanny. Leo wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Dad said I had to stay close to Marco, but Marco was talking to the security people and I needed to be somewhere quiet. Julia's heart ached. This child was clearly struggling, and whoever Marco was had lost track of him. She looked out from under the tablecloth. Still no one searching, no panicked parent. Well, you picked a good hiding spot. Very strategic. Strategic? It means smart, clever. You found somewhere safe and quiet. Leo studied her face with an intensity unusual for a 5-year-old. You're nice. Thank you, sweetheart. You seem pretty nice too. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Above them, shoes passed by, heels clicking, dress shoes tapping. The string quartet played something classical and complicated. I have a son about your age, Julia said. His name is Owen. He likes to hide sometimes too, when things get overwhelming. Usually under his bed or in his closet with his stuffed dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are cool. Leo's voice was stronger now. I like the ocean ones better though. Mosasaurus and plesiosaurs. Marine reptiles, very cool. Leo smiled, a real one this time. It transformed his serious little face. Julia heard voices outside, closer now. Male, authoritative, tense. Check the kitchen. Already did. The boy's not there. The boss is going to lose his mind if we don't find him. Leo tensed beside her. His small hand suddenly grabbed Julia's, squeezing tight. That's Marco, he whispered. He's going to be mad. He's probably just worried about you. Should we let him know you're okay? Leo shook his head frantically. Not yet. Please, just a few more minutes. Julia should have called out immediately. Should have announced they were under here, that Leo was safe. But something in the boy's desperate gray eyes stopped her. Okay, a few more minutes, but then we tell them, deal? Deal. They sat together in their fabric cave. Julia asked Leo about his favorite marine reptiles. He told her about a documentary he'd watched, his words tumbling over themselves with enthusiasm. His hand stayed in hers. When footsteps approached their table again, Julia squeezed Leo's hand. Ready? Leo took a deep breath and nodded. Julia lifted the tablecloth. Excuse me? I found someone who might be lost. The man who turned around was built like a professional bodyguard. Graying temples, brown eyes that went wide with relief, expensive suit concealing what were definitely weapons. His forearms, visible when he crouched, showed intricate tattoos. Leo, Jesus, kid, you can't just disappear like that. Sorry, Marco, Leo said quietly, still holding Julia's hand. Julia crawled out from under the table, helping Leo out after her. Several people were staring now. She smoothed her dress, suddenly aware of how ridiculous she must look. He was overwhelmed by the noise, Julia explained. He just needed a quiet moment. Marco's expression softened slightly as he looked at Leo, then hardened again as he assessed Julia. And you are? Julia Winters. I'm a guest of Christine Harlow. Marco, she was nice to me, Leo said. Don't be scary. I'm not being scary, I'm being careful. More footsteps approached. These were different. Measured, purposeful, carrying an authority that made people instinctively move aside. The crowd parted, The man who emerged was tall, easily over 6 feet, with black hair and gray eyes that matched Leo's exactly. He wore a tailored black suit that probably cost more than Julia's monthly rent. His expression was carefully neutral, but something dangerous flickered beneath the surface. Marco straightened immediately. "Boss, I found him. He's fine." The man's eyes locked onto Leo, scanning him for injuries with barely concealed intensity. Then his gaze shifted to Julia. His eyes were cold, assessing, the gray like steel in winter. "Leo." His voice was deep, controlled. "Come here." Leo didn't move. His hand tightened around Julia's. The man's eyes narrowed fractionally. "Now." "She's nice, Dad," Leo said, his voice small but defiant in a way that suggested this was unusual. "She didn't yell. She talked about dinosaurs." The man Julia now understood was Leo's father took 2 steps forward. The crowd gave him more space. There was something about him that commanded it, an undercurrent of barely restrained power. He looked at Julia directly. "You found my son under a dessert table." It wasn't a question. Julia lifted her chin despite the intimidation radiating off him. He was upset. The noise and crowd were overwhelming him. He needed a quiet space. "And you decided to hide with him instead of immediately alerting security." He asked for a few more minutes. He was calming down. "I was about to call for help when Marco found us." The man's jaw tightened. Several emotions flickered across his face too quickly to identify. He looked down at his son, at the way Leo still clung to this stranger's hand. "Let go of the woman, Leo. We're leaving." "But I don't want to leave her." Leo's eyes filled with tears again. "She's the only person who was nice tonight." Something cracked in the man's controlled expression. Pain, quickly buried. Julia knelt down to Leo's level, her dress pooling on the marble floor. "Hey, sweetheart, your dad was really worried about you. That's why he sounds upset. He loves you very much." "How do you know?" Leo whispered. "Because that's what parents do. When our kids disappear, even for a few minutes, it feels like the world is ending. I promise he's not mad at you." Leo studied her face, then looked up at his father. "Are you mad at me, Dad?" The man's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "No, I was worried. There's a difference." Leo finally released Julia's hand. He walked to his father, who immediately picked him up. The gesture was careful, almost rusty, like he didn't do it often enough. Julia stood, her knees protested. "Thank you," the man said stiffly, "for staying with him." "Of course." Christine appeared through the crowd, slightly breathless. "Vincent, I heard Leo was missing. Thank goodness he's all right." She looked at Julia. "Did you find him?" "Vincent. So that was his name." "Yes," Julia said. "He just needed some quiet." Christine beamed. "Of course you did. Julia has this gift with children. She used to be my assistant, ran my entire life with such grace." Vincent's eyes returned to Julia with renewed interest. "Christine's assistant." "A long time ago," Julia said quickly. "I don't work in that world anymore." "Julia's being modest," Christine continued, oblivious to the tension. "She was brilliant, left to focus on her own son, single mother, works 2 jobs now, absolute warrior of a woman." Julia wanted the floor to swallow her. This was exactly the kind of attention she didn't need. Vincent was watching her with unsettling intensity. Leo had his arms around his father's neck, but was looking at Julia too. "Can she stay with us?" Leo asked suddenly. "For the rest of the night?" "Leo, that's not appropriate," Vincent said. "Please, Dad, please. I'll be good. I'll stay right next to Marco. I just want her nearby." The request hung in the air. Julia opened her mouth to politely decline. Vincent spoke first, his gray eyes locked on hers. "Would you be willing to stay with Leo for the remainder of the evening? I have business to conduct, and he's clearly comfortable with you." Julia stared at Vincent Moretti, her mind racing through a dozen reasons to refuse. She didn't know these people. This man radiated danger like heat from asphalt in summer. Every instinct screamed that getting involved was a mistake. But Leo was looking at her with such hope in his gray eyes. "I suppose I could stay for a little while," Julia heard herself say. "If Leo needs someone." Vincent's expression remained unreadable. "Marco will stay close. If you need anything, tell him." He set Leo down carefully. The boy immediately moved to Julia's side, slipping his small hand into hers like it belonged there. Vincent walked away without another word. The crowd swallowed him, people instinctively clearing paths, heads turning to watch him pass. Marco remained 3 feet away, his stance protective, his eyes constantly scanning the ballroom. He looked at Julia with barely concealed suspicion. "So," Julia said to Leo, forcing brightness into her voice, "what would you like to do? Can we draw?" "I don't know if they have supplies here, sweetheart." Leo tugged her toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, where several high-top tables stood empty. He climbed onto a chair, his legs dangling. Marco followed like a well-armed shadow. A server approached with champagne. Marco waved him away. "Do you have any crayons or paper?" Julia asked the young man. "For the little one?" The server looked confused. "I can check with the event coordinator." He returned 5 minutes later with several sheets of printer paper and a handful of ballpoint pens. Not ideal, but Leo's face lit up. "Thank you," Julia told the server, meaning it. She sat beside Leo, her emerald dress a stark contrast to the utilitarian white paper. Leo immediately began drawing, his tongue poking out in concentration. A creature with flippers and sharp teeth emerged under his careful lines. "Mosasaurus?" Julia guessed. Leo nodded enthusiastically. They were the top predators in the ocean during the Cretaceous period, even bigger than great white sharks. "How do you know so much about them?" "I watch documentaries and read books. Rosa gets them from the library for me." Julia watched him draw, his earlier distress completely forgotten in the focus of creation. She understood this too. Owen did the same thing, losing himself in drawing his beloved dinosaurs. "Do you like school?" Julia asked. Leo's pen paused. "It's okay. The learning part is good. The other kids are weird sometimes." "Weird how?" "They don't want to talk about interesting things. Just cartoons and superheroes. And they're really loud during recess." Julia smiled. "Owen, my son, he's like that too. He likes quiet play, building things, drawing. The loud games make him anxious." "Does that make him weird?" "It makes him Owen. Everyone's brain works differently." "It's not weird. That's just human." Leo considered this, then returned to his drawing. He added another mosasaurus, smaller, beside the first one. "That's the baby," he explained. "They had to protect their babies from other predators. Good parents do that. Protect their babies. My mom died when I was 3. This statement was matter-of-fact, but Julia's chest tightened. She glanced at Marco, who was carefully not looking at them. "I'm so sorry, Leo. That must be really hard." "I don't remember her much, just her smell sometimes. She wore perfume that smelled like flowers." Leo's pen moved across the paper. "Dad doesn't talk about her. I think it makes him too sad." Julia didn't know what to say. This child was carrying such heavy grief with the same seriousness he carried facts about prehistoric marine reptiles. "Your dad loves you very much," Julia said quietly. "Sometimes grown-ups don't know how to talk about sad things, even when they should." "Do you talk to Owen about sad things?" "I try to, even when it's hard." Leo looked up at her. "Where's Owen's dad?" "He left before Owen was born, so it's just been the two of us." "Does that make you sad?" Julia chose her words carefully. "Sometimes, but Owen makes me happy every single day. Being his mom is the best thing I've ever done." Leo smiled. He went back to his drawing, adding more details. Across the ballroom, Julia caught glimpses of Vincent. He moved through the crowd with purpose, stopping to speak with various people. Men in expensive suits leaned in when he talked. Women watched him with predatory interest. He never smiled. A woman appeared at Vincent's side, tall, stunning, in a black dress that hugged every curve. Long dark hair, sharp features, possessive body language. She touched Vincent's arm while speaking, her red lips curving in practiced seduction. Vincent's expression remained neutral. But he didn't pull away. "That's Vanessa," Leo said, following Julia's gaze. His voice had gone flat. "Dad says she's a friend. She wants to marry him." "Oh," Julia said, unsure how to respond. "She doesn't like me much. She pretends when Dad's around, but I can tell." Leo drew angry scribbles in the water around his mosasaurus. "She says kids should be in bed by 7 and not bother adults." Julia's protective instinct flared. "That's not a very nice way to think about children." "Rosa says some people just don't have maternal instincts." Leo looked at Julia. "Do you have them?" "Maternal instincts? Yes, I suppose I do. They're very loud sometimes." "I like that." They drew together in comfortable silence. Julia sketched a clumsy T-Rex. Leo giggled and showed her how to make the arms smaller, more proportional. The evening wore on. Servers passed with hors d'oeuvres. Julia made sure Leo ate something, cutting up chicken skewers into manageable pieces. Marco accepted water, but nothing else, his attention never wavering from his surroundings. Vanessa approached their table around 8:30. Her heels clicked with authority. Up close, she was even more beautiful, and her dark eyes assessed Julia with instant, naked hostility. "Leo, sweetie, you should be with your father," Vanessa said, her voice syrupy. "Not bothering this woman." "He's not bothering me," Julia said evenly. Vanessa's smile was sharp. "How generous of you. Vincent really should have arranged proper childcare instead of dragging Leo to adult events." "His nanny got sick," Leo said quietly. "It wasn't Dad's fault." "Of course not, darling." Vanessa reached for Leo's hand. "Come on, let's get you to your father." Leo pulled back, pressing closer to Julia. "I want to stay here." Vanessa's expression tightened. "Leo, don't be difficult." "I'm not being difficult, I'm drawing." "You're being rude to this nice woman who's been forced to babysit you all evening." Julia stood, placing herself slightly between Vanessa and Leo. Her voice remained calm, but carried steel underneath. "No one forced me. Leo asked if I'd stay with him, and I agreed. He's been perfectly behaved." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Julia Winters, a guest of Christine Harlow." "How convenient." Vanessa looked her up and down dismissively. "Let me give you some advice. Julia Winters, Vincent Moretti is not someone you want to get tangled up with, especially not through his son." "I'm not trying to get tangled up with anyone. I'm simply keeping a child company." "Sure you are." Vanessa's smile was poisonous. "You seem like a smart woman. Smart women know when they're out of their depth." Marco shifted his weight. His hand moved fractionally toward his jacket. Vanessa noticed and stepped back. "I'll tell Vincent you're managing fine," Vanessa said, her tone saccharine again. "Come along, Leo, when you're ready to join the adults." She walked away, her hips swaying deliberately. Several men watched her pass. Leo exhaled shakily. "I don't like her." "That's okay, sweetheart. You don't have to like everyone." "Do you think she's pretty?" "She's very pretty on the outside," Julia said carefully. "But pretty isn't the same as kind." Leo nodded solemnly. He picked up his pen again, but his hand was shaking slightly. Julia made a decision. "Hey, want to see a picture of Owen?" Leo's face brightened. "Yes." Julia pulled out her phone, an old model with a cracked screen. She showed Leo her background photo. Owen grinning, gap-toothed at the camera, holding up a clay dinosaur he'd made, his light brown hair sticking up in all directions. "He looks nice," Leo said. "Does he like Mosasaurus too?" "I think he likes land dinosaurs more, but I bet he'd love to hear about ocean reptiles." "Maybe we could meet sometime and draw together." Julia's heart squeezed. "Maybe, sweetheart." The gala began winding down around 9. People drifted toward exits, air-kissing goodbyes, arranging lunches. Julia checked her phone. 3 texts from Margaret, saying Owen was asleep. Everything was fine. Vincent appeared at their table without warning. Julia hadn't seen him approach, but suddenly he was there, Leo's drawings spread before them. His gray eyes moved from the papers to his son's face. Something shifted in his expression. "You drew these?" Leo nodded. Julia helped. "Well, she drew the T-Rex. I fixed it, though." The corner of Vincent's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You're very talented." Leo beamed. Vincent's attention turned to Julia. "I appreciate your time this evening." "Of course, Leo's wonderful company. My driver can take you home." Julia shook her head. "That's very kind, but I can catch a taxi." "Thank you, though. It's not an imposition. Marco will drive you." "Really, I'm fine. I don't want to trouble anyone." Vincent's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in his gray eyes. Surprise, maybe, at being refused. People probably didn't tell him no very often. "Very well." He turned to Leo. "Say goodnight." Leo slid off his chair and wrapped his arms around Julia's waist. The hug was tight, desperate, the kind that suggested he didn't receive many. "Thank you for being nice," Leo whispered against her dress. Julia's throat tightened. She hugged him back, smoothing his dark hair. "You're very welcome, sweetheart. Keep practicing those drawings." Leo pulled back reluctantly. He took his father's hand, looking small beside Vincent's imposing frame. Julia watched them walk away. Marco followed 3 paces behind. At the ballroom entrance, Leo turned back and waved. Julia waved back. Then they were gone. Christine found Julia near the coat check. "There you are. I saw you with the Moretti boy all evening. That was kind of you. He needed someone. He's a sweet kid. Vincent Moretti's son." Christine's tone was meaningful. "That's quite a connection." "It's not a connection. I just sat with a lonely child." Christine smiled knowingly, but said nothing else. She hugged Julia goodbye, made her promise to keep in touch, and disappeared into the thinning crowd. Julia collected her coat and stepped outside. The November air was sharp, clearing the champagne fog from her head. She pulled out her phone to call a taxi. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The window lowered. Vincent Moretti looked at her from the driver's seat. Leo was buckled in the back, already drowsy. "Get in," Vincent said. "Not a request. I told you. I can get a taxi. At this hour in this neighborhood, you'll wait 20 minutes minimum. I'm offering you a ride. It's practical, not charity." Julia hesitated. Everything about this felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. But it was late, and she was exhausted, and the thought of standing in the cold was suddenly unbearable. She got in the passenger seat. The car was warm, leather interior, that new car smell mixed with subtle cologne. Classical music played quietly. Vincent pulled into traffic with practiced ease. "Address?" he asked. Julia rattled off her apartment building. She saw his jaw tighten fractionally. He knew the neighborhood. Everyone did. High crime, low income, the part of the city people like him never visited. They drove in silence. Leo's breathing had evened out in the back. Julia glanced at him in the rear-view mirror. He looked peaceful in sleep, his serious little face finally relaxed. "He doesn't usually warm up to people that quickly," Vincent said suddenly. His voice was quiet, careful. "Especially not strangers. He's a good kid, smart, sensitive. Too sensitive sometimes." Vincent's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "The world isn't kind to sensitive children. The world isn't kind to any children, but that doesn't mean we should make them harder. Sensitivity is a strength." Vincent glanced at her. "You really believe that?" "I do. Owen's sensitive too. He feels everything deeply. It scares me sometimes how much he can be hurt. But it also means he loves deeply, cares deeply. I wouldn't trade that for anything." They stopped at a red light. Vincent studied her profile. "You work 2 jobs. Christine mentioned that." Julia stiffened. "I do what I need to do. No judgment, I'm stating a fact." The light turned green. They moved forward. "What are the jobs?" "Coffee shop in the morning, bookstore in the evening." "And Owen?" "Kindergarten during the day. My neighbor watches him in the evening." "That's a long day for both of you." Julia's defenses rose. "We manage just fine." "I didn't say you don't." Vincent took a turn. They were getting closer to her neighborhood. "I'm going to make you an offer. You can refuse, but I want you to consider it seriously." Julia's stomach dropped. "Mr. Moretti." "Vincent." "Vincent, I don't know what you think happened tonight, but I'm not interested in." "I want to hire you as Leo's nanny." Julia's mouth snapped shut. That was not what she'd expected. Vincent continued, his voice measured. "His current nanny, Rosa, is 68. She's competent, but aging. Leo likes her, but there's no real connection. Tonight was the first time in months I've seen him genuinely happy. Calm. He responded to you in a way I haven't seen since his mother died. That's very flattering, but I have 2 jobs. I can't just... I'll pay you triple what you're making now. Combined. Plus health insurance for you and Owen. Flexible hours. You'd primarily work during my business hours, roughly 9 to 6, 5 days a week." Julia's head spun. The number he was suggesting was absurd, life-changing, impossible. "Why would you offer that?" "Because Leo needs it, and because I can. You don't know anything about me. I know you stayed with a frightened child under a dessert table instead of immediately handing him off to security. I know Christine Harlow trusts you, and Christine's judgment is rarely wrong. I know you work 2 jobs to support your son and haven't let that make you bitter or hard." Vincent's gray eyes met hers briefly. "That's enough." They pulled up outside her apartment building. The contrast between Vincent's luxury car and the graffitied walls was stark. A man was smoking on the front steps. watching them with undisguised interest. Julia's face burned with shame she hated feeling. "I need to think about it," she said quietly. "Of course." Vincent reached into his jacket, pulled out a business card. Heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. A phone number, nothing else. "Call me when you decide. You have 24 hours. That's not much time. It's enough to know if your instinct says yes or no." Julia took the card. Her fingers brushed his. His hands were warm, calloused in unexpected places. "Thank you for the ride." She opened the door. Vincent's voice stopped her. "Julia." She turned back. His expression was unreadable in the dim light. "Leo asked if he'd see you again. I told him I didn't know. I don't make promises I can't keep. But I hope the answer is yes." Julia's throat was tight. She nodded and got out. The car didn't leave until she was inside the building, she noticed. She climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, her heels echoing in the stairwell. Margaret was reading on the couch when Julia entered. She looked up with a kind smile. He was an angel, ate his dinner, brushed his teeth, went right to sleep. Julia paid her, apologizing that she didn't have more for a tip. Margaret waved her off. "How was the gala?" "Complicated," Julia said honestly. After Margaret left, Julia checked on Owen. He was sprawled across his bed, Brachiosaurus clutched tight, his mouth slightly open. She kissed his forehead, breathing in the little boy smell of him. In her own room, Julia sat on the bed and stared at Vincent's card. Triple her salary. Health insurance. 1 job instead of 2. Time with Owen. Actual time, not just exhausted hours stolen between shifts. But it meant entering the world of Vincent Moretti. A man who veiled with armed security, whose presence made people nervous, who had cold eyes that occasionally showed something terrifyingly vulnerable when he looked at his son. Julia thought about Leo's gray eyes filling with tears, his small hand in hers, the way he'd hugged her goodbye like she was something precious. She thought about Owen's shoes held together with glue. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Vincent Moretti. Consider this my formal offer. Position as primary nanny for Leo Moretti, age 5. Salary $85,000 annually. Full health benefits for you and your son. Hours Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., with flexibility for occasional evening events. 2 weeks paid vacation. Start date negotiable. Background check required. References checked. Respond to this message with yes or no by tomorrow evening." Julia stared at the number. $85,000. She currently made about $28,000 combined from both jobs. This was insane. This was dangerous. This was everything she needed. She looked at Owen's baby picture on her nightstand. 3 pounds at birth, 2 months premature, tubes and wires keeping him alive, while Julia prayed to anyone who would listen. She'd promised him then that she'd give him everything, every opportunity, every chance she never had. Julia picked up her phone. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She thought about Leo asking if sensitivity was weird, about Vincent's hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel, about the way father and son moved around each other like strangers learning a difficult dance. She thought about Owen showing Leo his dinosaur drawings. 2 sensitive boys who might understand each other. Julia typed 1 word. Yes. She hit send before she could change her mind. The response came 30 seconds later. "Background check will begin tomorrow. I'll have my attorney send the contract. Thank you, Julia. Leo will be happy." Julia set down her phone. Her hands were shaking. She'd just agreed to work for a man whose last name made people nervous, to enter a world she'd left behind 6 years ago, to let her son into the orbit of whatever Vincent Moretti actually was. But when she closed her eyes, all she saw was Leo's smile when she'd stayed under the table with him. Sometimes you made choices with your head. Sometimes you made them with your heart. Julia just hoped she'd chosen right. 3 weeks later, Julia stood in the kitchen of the Moretti estate, watching Leo carefully arrange apple slices on a plate. "Overlapping, not touching," Leo explained seriously. "That way you can pick them up without your fingers getting all the other ones sticky." "Very logical," Julia said, hiding her smile. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind. The background check had cleared within 48 hours. The contract arrived via courier, reviewed by a lawyer Christine had recommended. Julia gave notice at both jobs. Her manager at the coffee shop shrugged. Patricia at the bookstore hugged her and told her she deserved good things. The hardest part was explaining to Owen. "So I'll have a new job," Julia had said, kneeling in front of him. "Taking care of a little boy whose mommy died. He's your age. His name is Leo." Owen had considered this carefully. "Will you still be my mommy?" "Always. Forever. Nothing changes that." "Okay. Can I meet him?" Which led to today. Saturday afternoon, Julia's first weekend since starting. Vincent had suggested Owen visit, meet Leo, see if they got along. Marco had picked them up that morning, Owen's eyes huge as he took in the armored SUV. The estate was massive. Iron gates, manicured grounds, a house that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Owen had pressed his face against the car window, whispering, "Whoa." Leo had been waiting in the foyer. The boys had stared at each other for approximately 10 seconds before Leo asked if Owen liked dinosaurs. Owen said yes, but marine reptiles were cool too. They'd been inseparable since. Now they were in the kitchen, preparing snacks with the intensity of scientists conducting experiments. The estate's cook, a woman named Helen, with kind eyes and flour perpetually on her apron, watched them with amusement. "You're very good with them," Helen said to Julia quietly. "Leo's different since you started. Lighter." Julia felt warmth in her chest. "He's a wonderful kid." "He is, but he's been so sad for so long. Nice to hear him laugh." The boys carried their apple plate to the enormous den. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens. Leather furniture that probably cost more than Julia's annual salary. A TV the size of her apartment wall. Leo and Owen ignored all of it, settling on the carpet with a bin of building blocks. Julia sat on the couch, close enough to supervise, but far enough to let them play. Marco stood near the doorway, ever present, ever watchful. She'd gotten used to his constant surveillance. The background check had revealed Vincent's world more clearly than any conversation. Vincent Moretti, 34, owner of numerous legitimate businesses, import-export, real estate, restaurants, all legal, all profitable, but underneath whispered connections. The Moretti family name carried weight in certain circles. Rumors of underground operations, nothing proven, nothing charged, but enough that Julia understood the armed security. She'd made peace with it, or tried to. Vincent had been mostly absent during her first 3 weeks. He left before she arrived at 9, returned after 6 when she was leaving. Their interactions were brief, professional. He'd ask about Leo's day, she'd report. He'd nod. That was it. But she'd catch him watching sometimes, observing her with Leo through doorways, his expression unreadable. Rosa, the previous nanny, had stayed on for a transition week. Sweet woman, clearly fond of Leo, but tired. She'd hug Julia on her last day. "Take care of that boy," Rosa had said. "He needs someone who sees him, really sees him." Julia tried to do that. She'd learned Leo's rhythms. He needed quiet time after lunch. Loud noises genuinely hurt his ears, not just bothered him. He was brilliant with patterns, could remember complex facts, but struggled with emotional regulation when overwhelmed. He reminded her so much of Owen. "Miss Julia?" Leo looked up from the blots. "Can Owen come over again? Maybe next weekend?" Owen's face lit up. "Can I, Mama?" Julia's chest tightened with an emotion she couldn't name. "If it's okay with Leo's dad." "I'll ask him tonight," Leo said confidently. Then, quieter. "He's been coming home earlier now. I think he wants to see you." Julia's pulse jumped. "He probably wants to check on you, sweetheart." "Maybe." Leo didn't sound convinced. The boys returned to building an elaborate structure they claimed was an underwater research station. Their heads bent together, one dark, one light brown, chalking in the shorthand of instant friendship. Helen brought sandwiches at noon. The boys ate messily, crusts discarded despite Julia's gentle insistence. Marco accepted coffee but nothing else. Around 2, the front door opened. Julia heard it from the den. Heard Marco straighten to attention. Heard footsteps in the marble foyer. Vincent appeared in the doorway. He wore jeans. Actual jeans, dark and well-fitted. and a charcoal sweater that made his gray eyes more pronounced. His hair was slightly disheveled. He looked younger like this, less like a dangerous businessman and more like a tired father. "Dad," Leo jumped up. "You're home early." "I am." Vincent's expression softened as Leo rushed to him. He picked his son up with easy strength. "What are you building?" "An underwater station, with Owen." "This is Owen, Mama's son. Remember I told you he was coming?" Vincent's eyes met Julia's over Leo's head. Something passed between them. Acknowledgement, understanding. Something else she couldn't identify. "I remember. Hello, Owen." Owen, usually shy with new adults, waved. "Hi, your house is really big." "It is," Vincent agreed. "Do you like it?" "It's nice, but I think it's probably hard to find stuff. Like if you lose a toy, it could be anywhere." The corner of Vincent's mouth twitched. "That's a very practical observation." He set Leo down. The boys immediately returned to their building. Vincent walked further into the room, and Julia became acutely aware of how casual she looked. Jeans and a soft blue sweater, hair pulled back, minimal makeup. Not exactly professional nanny attire. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I should have dressed more appropriately. I didn't expect you home." Vincent frowned. "You're watching children on a Saturday. That's appropriate." He sat in the chair opposite her. Margot remained by the door but relaxed fractionally. "How has the transition been?" Vincent asked. "Honestly, good. Leo's adjusting well. He's been showing me his routines, his preferences. We're learning each other. He talks about you constantly." Julia felt her cheeks warm. "He's easy to care about." Vincent watched the boys play. His expression was complicated. "His mother used to sit right there," he said suddenly, nodding at Julia's spot on the couch. She'd watch Leo play for hours, just content to observe him. Julia didn't know what to say. "I should have stayed home more," Vincent continued, his voice low. "Should have been present. But I was building the business, securing our future. I thought I had time." His jaw tightened. "Then I didn't." "Leo knows you love him," Julia said gently. "Even when you're not here." "Does he?" Vincent's gray eyes were raw. "Or does he just know I'm his father because someone told him?" "He asks about you constantly. What you're doing, when you'll be home, if you'll be proud of things he's made." "That's not obligation. That's love." Vincent looked at her for a long moment. "You're good at this, seeing people." "I just pay attention. Most people don't." Owen's voice interrupted. "Mr. Moretti, can Leo come to our house sometime?" Vincent's eyebrows rose. Julia's stomach dropped. "Owen, sweetheart, our apartment is very different from here. Leo might not—" "I want to go," Leo said immediately. "Can I, Dad? Please?" Vincent looked between the boys, then at Julia. She could see him calculating. Security concerns. The neighborhood. The risk. "We'll see," Vincent said finally. Leo's face fell. Owen looked disappointed. Julia stood. "Owen, why don't you and Leo wash up? We should head home soon." The boys trudged off, Marco following at a discreet distance. Vincent stood too. They were suddenly very close in the large room. "I wasn't saying no," Vincent said quietly. "I was saying I need to consider logistics." "I understand. Your world is different from mine." "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" Julia met his eyes. "You live behind gates and armed guards. I live in a 3-story walk-up where the elevator's been broken for 6 months. Those are different worlds, Vincent." His expression hardened. "I grew up in a neighborhood worse than yours. Don't assume you know my world." Julia blinked. She'd made assumptions, looked at the estate and the wealth, and presumed it had always been there. "I'm sorry," she said. "That was unfair." Vincent's shoulders relaxed. "Leo can visit your apartment, with security. Marco and another man, discreet. Is that acceptable?" Julia nodded, not trusting her voice. The boys returned, faces damp from washing. Owen hugged Leo goodbye. Leo made Owen promise to come back next weekend. Marco drove them home. The contrast between the SUV and Julia's apartment building was stark in daylight. Kids played in the street. Music blared from open windows. Marco walked them to their door, despite Julia's protests. His eyes catalogued every detail, every potential threat. "Thank you," Julia said at her threshold. Marco nodded. "The boss likes you. Leo loves you. That makes you important." His expression was serious. "Important things get protected in our world. Remember that." He left before Julia could respond. Inside, Owen immediately started drawing Leo's underwater station from memory. Julia made dinner, processed Marco's words, tried not to think about Vincent's raw expression when he talked about his dead wife. Her phone buzzed, a text from Vincent. "Thank you for today. Leo hasn't stopped smiling. Neither have I." Julia stared at the message. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. She typed back carefully. "Both boys had a wonderful time. Same time next week?" His response came quickly. "Yes. And Julia? You don't have to dress professionally on weekends. You looked perfect today." Julia set down her phone. Her hands were shaking slightly. This was supposed to be a job. Professional. Boundaries. But Vincent Moretti's gray eyes kept appearing in her mind. And the way Leo had said his father was coming home earlier to see her. And Marco's words about important things getting protected. Julia looked at Owen, humming while he drew. She'd entered this world for him. To give him opportunities and stability, and a chance at something better. She just hoped she could navigate it without losing herself in the process. Julia was putting away Leo's art supplies when she felt eyes on her. She turned. Vanessa stood in the doorway of the playroom, arms crossed, expression cold. Her black pencil skirt and silk blouse looked fresh from a magazine. Diamond earrings caught the afternoon light. "So you're the new nanny," Vanessa said. Not a question. "Yes, Julia Winters." Julia kept her voice neutral. "Can I help you with something?" "I'm here to see Vincent. We have lunch plans." Vanessa's gaze swept over Julia dismissively. "Where's Leo?" "Marco took him to his piano lesson." "Piano? How quaint." Vanessa stepped into the room, her heels clicking on hardwood. Vincent never mentioned. Once he'd hired someone new. It was fairly recent. I'm sure it was. Vanessa picked up one of Leo's drawings, examined it without interest, set it down. "You seem very comfortable here. For someone who's been around, what, a month?" 3 weeks. 3 weeks and already making yourself indispensable. Very strategic." Julia's jaw tightened. "I'm doing my job, taking care of Leo." "Is that all you're doing?" Vanessa's smile was sharp. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've positioned yourself quite nicely. Single mother, struggling, then suddenly working for one of the richest men in the city. Convenient." "I'm not sure what you're implying." "I think you are." Vanessa moved closer. She smelled like expensive perfume and ambition. "Let me be clear, since you're new to this world. Vincent Moretti is mine. We've been seeing each other for months. Just because he felt sorry for you and gave you a job doesn't mean you have a place in his life beyond that. I'm Leo's nanny. That's my place." "Good. Remember that." Vanessa's dark eyes were cold. "Vincent doesn't need complications. He needs someone who understands his world, who can navigate it properly, not some coffee shop waitress playing house." Julia's hands clenched. She forced them to relax. Getting into a confrontation with this woman would only cause problems. "I need to prepare Leo's snack for when he returns," Julia said evenly. "If you're waiting for Vincent, Helen can show you to his office." "Oh, I know where his office is. I know this house very well." Vanessa's smile was triumphant. "I've been here countless times, in many rooms, if you understand my meaning." Julia did. The implication was clear and designed to wound. "Excuse me," Julia said, moving toward the door. Vanessa caught her arm. Her grip was tight, nails digging in slightly. "Stay in your lane," Vanessa hissed. "Vincent tolerates you for Leo's sake. Don't mistake that for anything else." Julia pulled her arm free. "I'm not mistaking anything. Now let me do my job." She left the room, heart pounding. In the kitchen, Helen looked up from chopping vegetables. "You all right, dear? You look slushed." "I'm fine. Just a bit warm." Helen's knowing eyes suggested she'd heard the exchange. The estate had ears. "That woman's been sniffing around Vincent for 6 months, Helen said quietly. "Thinks she's got him locked down. But I've worked for this family a long time. I know what real interest looks like." Julia didn't respond. Couldn't respond without revealing too much. Leo burst through the back door 20 minutes later, Marco behind him. The boy's face was animated. "Miss Julia, I learned a new song. Want to hear?" "Absolutely." Leo dragged her to the music room. The piano was a beautiful grand, probably worth more than Julia's entire life savings. Leo climbed onto the bench and played a simple melody, tongue poking out in concentration. Julia clapped when he finished. "That was wonderful, Leo. Miss Chen says I have natural rhythm." Leo beamed. "Can Owen learn piano too?" Maybe someday, sweetheart. Dad could pay for lessons. He pays for everything. Julia's chest tightened. That's very generous, but Owen and I are fine. But you're family now. That's what Dad said. He said you and Owen are part of our family. Julia's breath caught. He said that? Last night. I asked if Owen was like my brother now, and Dad said you're both family. Leo looked at her seriously. That's good, right? You want to be family? Of course, sweetheart. I just didn't know your dad felt that way. He tells me lots of stuff. He's been talking more lately. Leo played a few random notes. He asks about you, what we did that day. If you're happy here, if Owen's happy. Julia's pulse quickened. Before she could respond, Marco appeared in the doorway. Boss is here, with company. Julia heard voices from the foyer. Vincent's deep tone. Vanessa's practiced laugh. Leo's expression soured. Is Vanessa here again? It seems so, Julia said carefully. I don't like when she comes over. She's fake nice to me. Leo, that's not polite. But it's true. She smiles, but her eyes don't. Not like your smiles. Yours reach your eyes. Vincent appeared behind Marco. His gaze immediately found Julia, then Leo. Something in his expression softened. How was piano? Vincent asked his son. Good. I learned a new song. Want to hear? Later. I have a meeting. Be good for Julia. I'm always good for Miss Julia. Vincent's mouth curved slightly. His eyes returned to Julia. Can I speak with you? Privately? Julia's stomach slicked. She nodded, following him into the hallway. Vanessa stood near the front door, arms crossed, watching them with barely concealed hostility. Vincent led Julia to his office, closed the door. The room was masculine, dominated by a massive desk, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. It smelled like paper and his cologne. Vanessa said something to you, Vincent stated. Not a question. Julia hesitated. It was nothing, just a misunderstanding. Don't protect her. Margot told me she cornered you in the playroom. Vincent's jaw was tight. What did she say? She was clarifying boundaries, making sure I understood my position here. Your position is Leo's nanny. Nothing she says changes that. She mentioned you two have been seeing each other. Vincent's expression darkened. We've had dinner a few times. Business associates, family connections, that's all. She seems to think it's more. What Vanessa thinks and what's real are two different things. Vincent moved closer. They were alone in his office, the door closed, the air suddenly charged. I need to know if she made you uncomfortable. If she did, she won't be welcome here anymore. You don't need to do that. Yes, I do. You work for me. You're in my home. That means you're under my protection. The words sent warmth through Julia's chest. Dangerous warmth. I can handle Vanessa, Julia said quietly. I'm sure you can, but you shouldn't have to. Vincent studied her face. Leo told me what he said. About you being family. Julia's cheeks heated. He's a child. He doesn't understand the complexity. He understands exactly what matters. Vincent's gray eyes were intense. You've been here 3 weeks, and you've changed everything. Leo laughs now. Really laughs. He asks for extra time before bed so he can tell me about his day with you. He draws pictures for you and saves them like treasures. Julia's throat was tight. He's an easy child to love. Is he? Vincent's voice dropped. His mother's been gone 2 years. In that time, 3 nannies quit because he was too difficult. Too quiet, too strange, too demanding. Rosa stayed because she's patient and needed the job. But there was no connection. Leo's not difficult. He's sensitive and brilliant and needs people who understand that. You understand it, in 3 weeks you understood what I failed to see for 2 years. Vincent's expression was raw. You've given him something I couldn't, and I'm grateful. More than I can express. You're his father, you give him everything. I give him things, money, security, this house. You give him yourself, your attention, your warmth, your genuine care. Those aren't the same. They stood close enough that Julia could see the small scar above his left eyebrow, the slight shadow of stubble on his jaw. The way his gray eyes had flecks of darker steel. Vincent, she started, not knowing how to finish. A knock interrupted. Marco's voice through the door. Boss, your 2 o'clock is here. Vincent stepped back. The moment broke. We'll continue this later, he said. Take the rest of the afternoon off. Spend time with Owen. You've been working long hours. I'm fine. Leo needs. Marco will watch Leo. Go home, Julia. That's not a request. Julia nodded. She left the office, collected her things, felt Vanessa's eyes tracking her every movement. Marco drove her home in silence. At her door, he spoke quietly. The boss ended things with Vanessa. Just now, during that meeting, she took it badly. Julia's heart pounded. He didn't need to do that. Yeah, he did. She crossed a line with you. In his world, that has consequences. Marco's expression was serious. You need to understand something. Vincent Moretti doesn't do anything halfway. If he's decided you matter, you matter. That means protection, but it also means danger. What kind of danger? The kind where his enemies notice he cares about someone. The kind where people try to use that against him. Marco held her gaze. There are people who want to hurt the boss. They'll go through anyone close to him to do it. You need to be aware. Fear crept up Julia's spine. Should I quit? That's your choice. But quitting won't make you safe now. You're already on the radar. Marco's voice softened slightly. For what it's worth, I think you're good for them. Both of them. The boss is different since you started. Present, almost happy. I haven't seen that since his wife died. He left before Julia could respond. Inside her apartment, Julia sat on the couch and tried to process everything. Vincent had ended things with Vanessa. Because of her. Because Vanessa had confronted her. Her phone buzzed. Vincent's number. Vanessa won't be an issue anymore. If anyone else makes you uncomfortable, tell me immediately. That's not a request, Julia. It's a requirement of your employment. Julia stared at the message. Her hands were shaking. She was falling into something she couldn't control, something that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. Another text came through. Leo wants to know if Owen can come for dinner tomorrow. Both of you, I'd like that too. Julia closed her eyes. She should maintain boundaries, should keep this professional. She typed back. We'd love to, thank you. The response was immediate. Good. See you tomorrow, Julia. She set down her phone and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The kindergarten was chaos at pickup time. Parents and nannies crowded the gate, children's voices creating a wall of sound. Julia stood with the other caregivers, waiting for the 3 o'clock bell. She'd been doing this for 2 weeks now. Picking up both boys together. Leo had transferred to Owen's school at Vincent's insistence. Better education, he'd said. But Julia suspected it was more about keeping Leo close to Owen, and by extension, close to her. The boys emerged together, backpacks bouncing, faces animated. They were talking about something, hands gesturing wildly. Mama, Owen reached her first. We're doing the project on ocean animals. Leo and I are partners. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Leo grabbed her hand. Can we work on it at your apartment today, please? I want to show Owen my books. Julia hesitated. Vincent had agreed to Leo visiting their apartment, but it required coordination, security, planning. I need to check with your dad first, Leo. He already said yes. He told me this morning. Leo looked up at her with those serious gray eyes. He said Margot would drive us and wait outside. Please, Miss Julia? Julia pulled out her phone, texted Vincent. His response came within seconds. Marco is authorized. 2 hours maximum. I'll pick Leo up at your place at 6. The boys cheered. Julia loaded them into Marco's SUV, hyper-aware of the other parents watching. The vehicle screamed money and danger in equal measure. Marco drove in silence. Another security guard Julia didn't recognize in the passenger seat. Both men wore suits that didn't quite hide their weapons. At Julia's building, Marco surveyed the street with professional assessment. His eyes cataloged the smoking teenagers on the corner, the broken streetlight, the graffiti. We'll be right here, Marco said. Any problems, you call immediately. Inside the apartment, the boys kicked off their shoes and immediately sprawled on the living room floor with Leo's books about marine life. Julia made them snacks, listening to their excited chatter about mosasaurus and plesiosaurs. The apartment felt smaller with Leo in it, not because of him, but because of what he represented. The wealth, the danger, the complicated world he came from. Here, surrounded by Julia's thrift store furniture and Owen's crayon drawings taped to walls, the contrast was jarring. But Leo didn't seem to notice. He was comfortable here, happy, sharing his crackers with Owen, and arguing good-naturedly about whether the megalodon was cooler than the mosasaurus. Julia's phone rang at 4:30. Unknown number. Hello? Is this Julia Winters? The voice was male, unfamiliar, with an accent she couldn't place. Yes, who's calling? Someone interested in your new employer. Vincent Moretti is a difficult man to reach, but the people he cares about, much more accessible. Ice flooded Julia's veins. I don't know what you're talking about. You're his son's nanny. You live at 847 Morrison Avenue, apartment 3C. You have a 5-year-old son named Owen. You pick up both boys from Riverside Elementary at 3 o'clock every weekday. Julia's hands went numb. She moved toward the window, looked down at the street. Marco's SUV was there, but she saw another car now. Dark sedan, tinted windows. Watching. What do you want? Julia whispered. To send a message. Tell Moretti the Constantine family remembers his insult. We're patient. We'll wait. And when the time is right, we'll take what he values most. The line went dead. Julia's phone slipped from her shaking hands. The boys were still on the floor, oblivious, arguing about prehistoric teeth structure. She picked up her phone with trembling fingers. Called Vincent. He answered on the first ring. Julia? Someone just called me, threatened me, mentioned Owen, mentioned Leo. Her voice broke. You know where I live. They're watching the building right now. Get the boys away from windows, now. I'm sending Marco up. Don't open the door for anyone else. Vincent's voice had gone cold, deadly. Julia heard him shouting orders in the background. Boys, Julia said, fighting to keep her voice steady. Let's go to my bedroom, right now. Owen looked up, confused. Leo's face went pale. He'd heard that tone before. Is it bad men? Leo asked quietly. Just being cautious, sweetheart. Come on. She herded them into her bedroom, closed the blinds, locked the door. Both boys sat on her bed. Owen starting to cry, Leo holding his hand. Heavy footsteps pounded up the stairs. Julia's heart hammered. A knock. Julia, it's Marco. Open up. She verified through the peephole before unlocking the door. Marco entered with 3 other men, all armed, all professional. He checked every room, every window, every possible entry point. Clear, one of the men reported. Marco crouched in front of Julia. Tell me exactly what they said. Julia repeated the conversation, her voice shaking. Marco's expression grew darker with each word. Constantine family, Russian mob, they've been pushing into Vincent's territory for months. Marco pulled out his phone. Boss is on his way. We're moving you all to the estate. Hack essentials for you and Owen. 5 minutes. I can't just leave. My job at the bookstore. You quit that 2 weeks ago. There's nothing keeping you here, and this apartment isn't safe. Julia's mind spun. Owen was crying harder now. Leo looked terrified, his small face white. She knelt in front of both boys. Listen to me. We're going to Leo's house for a little while. It's going to be an adventure. We'll all stay together, and Leo's dad will make sure we're safe. Are the bad men coming? Owen sobbed. No, baby. No one's going to hurt you, I promise. Julia had no right to make that promise, but she said it anyway. She threw clothes into a bag. Owen's stuffed Brachiosaurus, his dinosaur drawings, her laptop, important documents, photo albums. The essentials of their life crammed into 2 duffel bags. Tires squealed outside. Vincent's voice carried up the stairwell. He appeared in her doorway like an avenging angel. His face was carved from stone, gray eyes blazing. He scanned the apartment, found Leo, went to him immediately. Are you all right? Vincent's hands moved over his son, checking for injuries. I'm okay, Dad. Miss Julia kept us safe. Vincent pulled Leo into a fierce hug. Then he looked at Owen, still crying, and did something that made Julia's chest crack open. He pulled Owen in too, holding both boys. You're both safe, I promise. No one will hurt you. His eyes met Julia's over their heads, raw emotion and deadly promise. They moved as a unit down to the vehicles. Marco and his team formed a protective barrier. Julia saw neighbors watching, curtains twitching. The dark sedan was gone, but that didn't mean they weren't being observed. Vincent put the boys in his car, Julia beside them. Marco took the lead vehicle. 2 more SUVs formed a convoy. The drive to the estate was tense. Vincent made call after call, his voice clipped, commanding. Julia held both boys, their small bodies pressed against hers. Leo had stopped shaking. Owen was still crying quietly. Hey, Leo whispered to Owen. My house has a game room, with every video game ever, and a pool. You'll like it. Owen sniffled. Really? Really. And Miss Julia will be there. And my dad. He's really good at protecting people. Vincent's eyes found Julia's in the rearview mirror. Something passed between them. At the estate, they were rushed inside. Helen appeared immediately, concern creasing her kind face. "Oh, those poor babies. Come on, I'll make hot chocolate." Vincent took Julia's arm, guided her into his office, while Helen led the boys to the kitchen. Marco followed them in, closing the door. "Sit," Vincent ordered. Julia sat. Her legs were shaking too badly to stand anyway. Vincent poured amber liquid from a crystal decanter, handed her the glass. "Drink." She did. It burned going down, but warmth followed. Vincent leaned against his desk, arms crossed. His controlled demeanor was cracking at the edges. "The Constantine family has been testing my boundaries for 6 months. Small provocations, territory disputes. I've been handling it through proper channels." His jaw clenched. "Threatening you, threatening the children, that's a different level. That's war." "I'm sorry," Julia whispered. "If I'd known this job would put Owen in danger." "This isn't your fault." Vincent's voice was steel. "This is them declaring they'll go after anyone I care about, which means they've been watching, gathering intelligence, looking for weaknesses." "Am I a weakness?" Julia asked quietly. Vincent's gray eyes locked on hers. "You're the opposite. You're what makes me remember why I fight to control this city, to make it safer, for Leo, for people like you and Owen who deserve to live without fear." Marco shifted. "Boss, we need to make a response. Fast and decisive. They can't think this kind of move is acceptable." "I'm aware. Set up a meeting with our people, all of them. We're sending a message." Vincent's expression was terrifying in its coldness. "But first, we protect what matters." He turned to Julia. "You and Owen are staying here. Not negotiable. There are plenty of rooms. Owen can share with Leo or have his own space. You'll have security whenever you leave the estate. Marco and a full team." "Vincent, I can't just move into your house." "You can and you will. I won't risk you or Owen. End of discussion." Julia wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her independence, her boundaries. But Owen's terrified face flashed through her mind. "Okay," she whispered, "until this is resolved." Something flickered in Vincent's eyes. Relief, maybe, or something deeper. "I'll handle the Constantine family," Vincent said quietly. "They made a mistake threatening you. They'll learn that mistake has consequences." The way he said it made Julia shiver. This was Vincent Moretti in his true element. Not the awkward father or the careful employer. This was the man people feared. Marco's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "Boss, we've got a problem. Someone tried to breach the estate's outer perimeter. Security stopped them, but they left a package." Vincent was moving before Marco finished speaking. "Where?" "Front gate. Team hasn't opened it yet." They rushed to the security center, a room Julia didn't know existed. Multiple screens showed every angle of the estate. Armed guards surrounded a small box at the gate. Vincent studied the screens. "Scan it." One of the security team used a device on the package. "No explosives, no biological agents. It's safe to open." "Do it." Camera angle 4. On screen, a guard carefully opened the box. Pulled out a photog. Wrath. Julia's blood turned to ice. It was her and the boys, from today. Outside the kindergarten. Someone had been close enough to photograph them, and they'd never noticed. Written across the bottom in red ink, "Easy targets." Vincent's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Julia thought he might put them through the monitor. "Find them," Vincent said, his voice deadly calm. "I want every Constantine operation in this city identified. Every business, every warehouse, every apartment where their people sleep. I want locations, schedules, vulnerabilities. And then I want them to understand what happens when you threaten my family." My family. The words hung in the air. Marco was already coordinating, his phone to his ear, barking orders. Vincent turned to Julia. His expression shifted, the cold mask cracking to show something raw underneath. "I'm going to fix this, whatever it takes. You and the boys will be safe." 2 months later, Julia stood in the estate's garden, watching the boys chase butterflies through Helen's carefully maintained flower beds. The Constantine threat had been neutralized within 3 weeks. Julia didn't ask for details. She'd learned that Vincent's world had rules she didn't want to fully understand. But the dark sedan disappeared. The threatening calls stopped. And Marco had told her quietly that the Constantine family had decided to focus their operations in a different city. Permanently. Vanessa had tried to cause problems after being dismissed. She'd spread rumors, made accusations, even attempted to report Vincent to authorities for fabricated crimes. But her brother's gambling debts had caught up with him. And when investigators looked closely at Vanessa's finances, they'd found irregularities that suggested she'd been the one feeding information to dangerous people. She was currently awaiting trial. Vincent's lawyers had made sure the evidence was airtight. Julia had stopped working at the bookstore, as Marco had mentioned. Vincent had insisted, tripling her salary again and telling her to focus entirely on Leo. And on Owen, he'd added, looking at her with those gray eyes that had become increasingly difficult to read. They'd been living at the estate for 8 weeks. Owen had his own room now, decorated with dinosaur murals that Vincent had commissioned without asking. The boys were inseparable, more like brothers than friends, and Julia had fallen into a routine that felt dangerously like family. Vincent came home for dinner every night now. He asked about their days, helped with homework, played games with the boys before bed. He was learning to be present, and watching that transformation was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Because Julia was falling for him. She'd tried to fight it, tried to maintain professional distance. But it was impossible when he looked at her like she was something precious. When he remembered she liked her coffee with cream and no sugar. When he defended her without hesitation and called her family like he meant it. The garden door opened. Vincent stepped out, having changed from his suit into jeans and a dark Henley. He looked younger like this, more approachable, though no less dangerous. They're going to destroy Helen's roses, Vincent observed. Moving to stand beside Julia. I'll replant them personally if needed. They deserve to just be kids. Vincent watched the boys with soft eyes. Owen's reading level increased 2 grades since he's been here. His teacher called it remarkable. He feels safe. Safe kids learn better. He feels safe because of you. You created that for him, for both of them. Julia's pulse quickened. They were alone, the boys far enough away to be out of earshot. The afternoon sun painted everything golden. Vincent, she started. I need to tell you something, he interrupted. I've been trying to find the right words for weeks, but there aren't any. So I'm just going to say it. Julia's heart hammered. I haven't felt alive since Catherine died. I went through motions, built the business, provided for Leo, but I wasn't present, wasn't really here. Vincent turned to face her fully. Then you came into our lives. And suddenly everything changed. Leo started laughing. I started coming home. And I realized I was feeling things I thought I'd buried with my wife. Vincent, I'm your employee. We shouldn't. You're not just my employee. You haven't been for a long time, and we both know it. His voice was rough. You're the woman who crawled under a dessert table to comfort a terrified child, who stood up to Vanessa despite being intimidated, who moved into my home to keep your son safe and somehow made this estate feel like an actual home instead of just a house. Julia's eyes stung. This is complicated. I know. My world is dangerous. There will always be threats, always be security concerns. I can't promise you a normal life. Vincent's gray eyes were raw, but I can promise honesty, protection, partnership, and a man who wakes up every morning grateful you exist. I have Owen to think about, his stability, his safety. Owen is thriving here. He has Leo, has space, has security, has opportunities I can provide. But more than that, he has a mother who loves him enough to consider what's best for him before herself. Vincent's hand moved to cup her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Let me try to deserve you, Julia. Both of you. Tears spilled over. Julia leaned into his touch, despite every rational thought screaming caution. I'm scared, she whispered. So am I. Terrified, actually. I lost Catherine, and the grief nearly destroyed me. Loving again means risking that pain. Vincent's voice cracked slightly. But not trying means losing something that might be extraordinary. And I think this, us, could be extraordinary. Julia looked at the boys. Leo was showing Owen a caterpillar, their heads bent together, their laughter carrying on the breeze. They already were brothers in everything but blood. She thought about the past 2 months. Vincent teaching Owen to ride a bike. The 4 of them eating dinner together every night. Leo calling her mom accidentally last week, then looking terrified until she'd hugged him and said it was okay. Vincent's hand on her shoulder when she'd cried over missing her independence. The way he'd started leading coffee for her every morning, prepared exactly how she liked it. They were already a family, The only question was whether she was brave enough to acknowledge it. "I'm falling for you," Julia admitted. "I tried not to, tried to keep boundaries, but you make it impossible." Vincent's expression transformed. Hope, raw and vulnerable, spread across his face. "Yeah? Yeah." Julia laughed through her tears. "You're infuriating and overprotective, and you solve problems in ways I probably shouldn't know about. But you're also patient with Leo, kind to Owen, and you look at me like I'm something. Miraculous. You are." Vincent's other hand came up to frame her face. "You brought light back into our lives. How is that not miraculous?" He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. Julia didn't. The kiss was gentle, careful, like something precious that might break. His lips were warm, and he tasted like the coffee he'd been drinking. Julia's hands found his chest, feeling his heart beat under her palms. When they pulled apart, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "Is this real?" he murmured. "Tell me I'm not imagining this. It's real. Terrifying and complicated and real." "I can work with terrifying and complicated." "Mama," Owen's voice carried across the garden. "Look what Leo found." They separated, but Vincent caught her hand, lacing their fingers together. The boys ran over, Leo holding something cupped in his palms. A small frog, green and patient. "Can we keep him?" Leo asked. "Frogs need to live outside, sweetheart," Julia said. "But you can visit him in the pond." Leo considered this, then carefully set the frog down. It hopped away into the flowers. Owen chased after it, Leo following. "They're good together," Vincent said quietly. "They are. Owen's never had a friend like Leo before. Leo's never had a mother like you." Vincent squeezed her hand. "I know this is fast. We can take it slowly. Date properly. Do things the right way." Julia laughed. "We've been living together for 2 months with our children. I think we skipped a few traditional steps." "Fair point." Vincent's smile was devastating. "So what do we do now?" "We figure it out. Together. One day at a time." 6 months later, Julia woke to sunlight streaming through curtains that cost more than her old rent. She was in Vincent's bed, in his arms, right where she'd been most nights for the past 3 months. They'd taken it slowly at first. Dates outside the estate, carefully planned around security. Dinners where they talked until midnight. Stolen kisses when the boys went watching. But eventually, Leo had asked why Julia slept in the guest room when it was obvious she and his dad loved each other. 5-year-olds were perceptive like that. So Julia had moved into Vincent's room. Owen had been thrilled, declaring it meant they were a real family now. Leo had simply said, "Finally," and gone back to his dinosaur book. Vincent stirred beside her, his arm tightening around her waist. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning. We have approximately 10 minutes before the boys invade." 10 minutes. Vincent rolled, pinning her beneath him with a wicked smile. "I can work with 10 minutes." He was kissing her when the door burst open. "Dad, Mama Julia, Leo's teaching me about cephalopods," Owen announced, Leo right behind him. Vincent groaned, dropping his forehead to Julia's shoulder. "Terrible timing, gentlemen." "What's timing?" Leo asked innocently. Julia laughed, pushing Vincent off her. "Go brush your teeth, both of you. We'll make pancakes." The boys raced off, arguing about whether octopi or squid were cooler. Vincent pulled Julia close again. "Move in with me. Officially, not as my employee, or because of safety. Because I love you, and I want you here." Julia's breath caught. "You love me? Did I not mention that before?" Vincent's gray eyes were warm. "I love you, Julia Winters. Your strength, or compassion, your terrible coffee shop jokes that make Leo groan. All of it." "I love you too," Julia whispered. "Even though you're overprotective and solve problems in questionably legal ways." "Allegedly questionably legal ways." "Right, allegedly." Vincent kissed her thoroughly. "Is that a yes? You'll stay? Make this permanent?" Julia thought about Owen's laughter echoing through the estate. About Leo calling her mom without hesitation now. About Vincent coming home every night to them, choosing to be present, choosing them. "Yes, we'll stay. We'll make this work." "Good." Vincent's smile was brilliant. "Because I already had Helen set up the study as your office. You start at Christine's foundation next week, remember?" Christine had convinced Julia to run her new single-parent initiative. The job was fulfilling, paid well, and allowed flexible hours. Vincent had tried to just give her money, but Julia had needed to contribute, to maintain some independence. "You already set up an office?" I was confident. "Cocky, you mean." "That too." They made pancakes together, all four of them crowding the kitchen. Owen got batter in his hair. Leo insisted on arranging the chocolate chips in patterns. Vincent kissed Julia's temple while flipping pancakes. Casual affection that made her heart swell. After breakfast, they took the boys to the park. Security followed at a distance, discreet but present. Julia had made peace with that. Vincent's world required precautions, but he never made her feel trapped. At the playground, Owen and Leo played on the swings. Vincent sat beside Julia on a bench, his hand in hers. "What are you thinking?" he asked. Julia watched their boys laughing together. "That I came to a charity gala 6 months ago, feeling completely out of place. And now I'm here, with you, with them, and it feels like exactly where I'm supposed to be. Destiny? Maybe. Or maybe just being brave enough to stay when things got complicated." Vincent lifted her hand, kissed her knuckles. "Thank you for staying, for giving this a chance, for loving my son like your own. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me. Not just the struggling single mom, but all of it." "How could I not? You're extraordinary, Julia." Leo ran over, Owen behind him. "Dad, can Owen sleep in my room tonight? We want to build a fort. If that's okay with Julia and Owen." Owen looked at Julia with pleading eyes. She nodded. The boys cheered and ran back to the swings. Vincent pulled Julia closer. "I never thought I'd have this again. A partner. A family. Happiness. You deserve it. You've worked hard to be present, to be better. You made me want to be better." Vincent's voice was quiet. "You gave me a reason to come home." Julia leaned her head on his shoulder. Around them, the park was alive with families. Children laughing, parents watching, the ordinary magic of a Sunday afternoon. This was her life now. Complicated, unconventional, but hers. She'd been a single mother working 2 jobs, struggling to survive. Now she was part of something bigger. A found family built on love and trust, and 2 5-year-old boys who'd seen something the adults had been too scared to acknowledge. Vincent pressed a kiss to her hair. "I love you. I love you too." The boys called for them to push the swings higher. They stood together, hands still linked, and walked toward their children. Their family. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. In Vincent's dangerous world, that was the best promise anyone could make. And it was enough.